The moment I found Evelyn's letter hidden in an old cigar box, I knew Marcus had been lying to me for years. Her familiar handwriting cut through me like a knife. She wrote of his promises, the money he swore he'd repay, the future he painted in vivid lies. My best friend, almost a brother, had conned her out of everything, her savings, her dreams, her faith. Evelyn was gone, not from illness but from betrayal. I stood in my empty Chicago apartment, the wind howling outside, and vowed Marcus would pay. Marcus and I grew up in a rough neighborhood where hope was as rare as clean water. He was the charmer, always talking his way out of trouble, late rent, bar fights, even cop suspicions. I, James, was the quiet one, always in his shadow, believing his every word. When he started his investment firm, I thought he'd made it. Sharp suits, a sleek car, words like portfolio and dividends. He convinced Evelyn to invest her life savings, $200,000, earned through grueling shifts at a diner. "It's a sure thing," he'd said, clapping my shoulder. "I'll take care of her, James." But the letter told a different story. Marcus had siphoned her money into his own accounts, leaving her with nothing. She wrote of confronting him, his cold dismissal, the shame that drove her to leave town. I hadn't seen her in 2 years, hadn't known her pain. Now, clutching the letter on my worn couch, I felt a rage I'd never known. He'd stolen more than money, he'd stolen her dignity, my trust. I drove to his downtown office, a glass tower screaming wealth. The receptionist, Clara, smiled nervously as I stormed past. Marcus was in a meeting, but I didn't care. I burst into his office, where he sat with 2 men in suits, laughing over whiskey. "James," he said, his smile faltering. "What's this about?" I held up the letter. "Evelyn. Remember her?" His face paled, but he recovered, ushering the men out. "Let's talk, buddy," he said, his voice smooth. But I was no longer his buddy. I slammed the letter on his desk, watching his eyes scan the words. He tried to laugh it off, called it a misunderstanding, but I saw the truth in his trembling hands. He offered me a job, money, anything to keep me quiet. I leaned in, my voice cold. "You'll repay her, Marcus. Every cent. Or I'll make sure everyone knows who you are." As I left, I felt his gaze on my back. That night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Leave it alone, James. You don't know what you're starting." The text haunted me. "Leave it alone, James." It wasn't Marcus's number, but it reeked of his cowardice, hiding behind someone else. I sat in my car outside his office the next night, watching the lights flicker off. Chicago's skyline glittered, but all I saw was anger. Evelyn's letter burned in my pocket, a reminder of his betrayal. I wasn't backing down. I'd spent the day digging. Marcus didn't work alone, he had a network propping up his lies. I remembered Travis, a shady accountant always eager to help Marcus with creative bookkeeping. I found his address in an old email, a rundown apartment in Logan Square. When I knocked, he opened the door a crack, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. "James. What do you want?" "The truth about Marcus," I said, pushing inside. His place smelled of stale coffee and fear. Papers littered a table, bank statements, wire transfers, unfamiliar names. I grabbed one, seeing Evelyn's name next to a $50,000 transfer to an offshore account. "You helped him steal from her," I said, barely containing my fury. Travis stammered, claiming he just followed orders. "Marcus runs the show. I just crunch numbers." But his shaking hands betrayed him. I leaned closer. "You're going to help me, Travis. Tell me everything." He spilled it all. Marcus had built a pyramid scheme targeting people like Evelyn. There were others, dozens of victims, their savings fueling his lavish life. Travis gave me names, dates, account numbers. It was enough to ruin Marcus. But as I left, he grabbed my arm. "He's got powerful friends, James. Keep pushing, and they'll find you. I didn't listen. The next few days, I contacted victims, gathering their stories. I met Rachel, a single mom who'd lost her home because of Marcus. Her tale mirrored Evelyn's, promises of wealth, then ruin. She cried, showing me her foreclosure notice, and I vowed justice. But driving home, I noticed a black SUV tailing me. It stayed distant but persistent. When I pulled into my complex, it slowed, then sped off. That night, I found a note slipped under my door, "Stop." My heart pounded, but I knew, this meant I was getting close. The note's single word, "Stop," sat on my table like a challenge. I didn't call the cops, Marcus had too many connections, and I didn't know who to trust. Instead, I bought a burner phone and kept reaching out to victims. Each story cut deep: a retired teacher, a young couple, a widower, all conned by Marcus. I was collecting their pain, but I needed more than words. I needed proof that would stick. I tracked down Clara, Marcus's receptionist. She was at a coffee shop near the office, looking exhausted, her eyes scanning the room like she expected trouble. "I know what Marcus did," I said, sliding into her booth. "And I think you do too." Clara gripped her coffee cup. "You don't get it, James. He's not just a conman. He's got connections, powerful people who protect him." She hesitated, then whispered, "There's a ledger. The real one, not the fakes he shows investors. It's got everything, names, accounts, deals. If you want to stop him, find it." "Where is it?" I asked, my pulse racing. She shook her head. "I don't know. Maybe his house, maybe a safe. But if you go after it, you're risking everything." I thanked her and left, but her warning stuck. Marcus's house was a fortress in the suburbs, all fences and cameras. Breaking in was madness, but I had no choice. I parked a block away, watching the house. The lights were off, but I saw a shadow pass a window. Not Marcus. Someone else. I waited until dawn, then slipped into the backyard, dodging cameras. Inside, the house was a shrine to Marcus's ego: art, leather furniture, a bar stocked with pricey whiskey. I searched for hours, finding only locked drawers. Then, in his study, I found a hidden panel behind a painting. Inside was a USB drive. I pocketed it and was heading out when I heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. I ducked behind a couch as a man entered, his silhouette massive in the dim light. He was on the phone. "He's digging. We need to stop this." I held my breath, catching a glimpse of his scarred face, unfamiliar, dangerous. Marcus wasn't just a liar. He was tied to people who didn't forgive. The USB drive felt like fire in my pocket as I slipped out of Marcus's house. The scarred man's voice echoed, "We need to stop this." I drove to a diner across town, hands shaking as I plugged the drive into my laptop. It was password protected. I tried everything: Evelyn's name, Marcus's birthday, our old street. Nothing worked. But I wouldn't give up. I called Travis, who sounded like he hadn't rested in days. "Know anyone who can crack a password?" I asked. He gave me a name: Ethan, a hacker, a wiry kid with too much energy. I met him at a back alley arcade, neon lights buzzing. He took the drive, promising to crack it in a day, but his eyes kept darting to the shadows. "You're messing with dangerous people," he said. "Hope you know what you're doing." I didn't, but I couldn't stop. I spent the day in a cafe, avoiding my apartment, rechecking Travis's documents. The accounts led to a shell company, Horizon Ventures, registered in the Caymans. I cross-referenced victims' names and found a pattern: all funds funneled through one bank. Marcus wasn't just scamming, he was laundering money for someone big. That night, Ethan called. "I got it open," he said, his voice tense. "You won't like it." He sent a file. In the diner's dim light, I opened it. The ledger was there, as Clara said, hundreds of names, millions of dollars, a column labeled status. Next to Evelyn's name was closed. My stomach churned. It meant she'd become a threat. Before I could process, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "You're digging too deep. Think about your sister." My blood ran cold. Lily, my sister, lived an hour away. She had no part in this. I called her, but she didn't answer. Panic surged. I had to find her, now. I raced to Lily's downtown Chicago home, the city blurring past, my mind screaming she was in danger because of me. Lily was my only family, a nurse who'd avoided my messes. If anything happened to her, I'd never forgive myself. Her house was dark, the door locked, but in the kitchen, I found her phone with a cracked screen. Beside it, a note: "Back off, or she's next." I nearly collapsed. They knew how to hit me. I called Ethan, my voice shaking as he sent the decrypted files. "They're threatening Lily." The ledger was worse than I'd feared. Marcus was laundering money for a network tied to Victor Crane, a powerful official. Evelyn's name was labeled closed because she'd asked too much. I realized her disappearance wasn't random. She was in trouble. I reached out to Clara, desperate. She whispered over the phone, scared, "Victor Crane's the one pulling the strings, James. He's his puppet. If they're targeting Lily, run, don't fight." But running wasn't an option. I offered Victor Crane's address, a downtown penthouse downtown, guarded like a fortress. I had no plan, only anger. I slipped into a building maintenance, posing as a delivery guy. The elevator took me to the top, where Victor stood by a window, sipping wine. "James," he said, not turning. "You're stubborn. Where's Lily?" I demanded, my voice steady. He smiled. "Safe. For now. Hand over the files, and we'll talk." I held up my phone, but didn't give it. "Let her go first." He nodded, but I saw a shadow by the door. Marcus stepped in, his eyes full of guilt. "I'm sorry, James," he said. "You should have stopped." Marcus's apology was as hollow as his promises. I stepped toward him, but Victor raised a hand, stopping me. "You're making things difficult, James," he said. "But I can be reasonable." His men surrounded me, their gazes cold. I gripped my phone, my only leverage. They took me to an office on the city's edge, a place where deals were made in shadows. Lily was there, sitting at a table, pale but unharmed. "James," she cried, and I nearly broke from relief. Victor stood beside her, holding my USB drive. "You've caused us trouble," he said. "But I'll make you an offer. Give us the files, and your sister walks." I looked at Lily, her eyes pleading with me to agree. But I knew Victor wouldn't let us go easily. I pretended to comply, handing my phone to Marcus. "You do it," I said. "Prove you're not theirs." Marcus trembled, holding the phone. For a moment, I thought he'd choose me. But he shook his head. "I can't, James. I'm in too deep." Fury surged in me. I stepped closer, demanding answers, but Victor's men grabbed me. Lily shouted, trying to intervene, but Victor stopped her. "You made your choice, James," he said. "Now you'll face the consequences." They led us to another room, where the scarred man, Derek, waited. He didn't threaten, just stared, like he knew I'd break. But I saw Marcus look away, his hands shaking. He was the weak link. I whispered to Lily, "Hold on. I'll find a way." That night, my phone buzzed. A video from an unknown number. It showed Evelyn, alive, in a dark room. A voice said, "One last chance, James. Bring the files, or she's gone for good." Evelyn was alive. It changed everything. The video showed her worn, scared, but breathing. The voice gave an address, a dockside warehouse, midnight. No cops, no tricks. I told Lily to stay safe, but she insisted, "We're in this together, James." I didn't argue. We armed ourselves with the truth, files on my phone. The warehouse loomed against the night, its rusted walls lit by dim streetlights. I clutched my phone, ready to send the files to a journalist if things went wrong. Inside, the air was thick with oil and salt. Victor waited at the far end, flanked by Derek and two others. Marcus stood aside, his gaze darting. And there, in the center, sat Evelyn. "James," she whispered, breaking my heart again. "The files," Victor said, his voice calm. I held up my phone, finger on the send button. I'd set up an email to a journalist, ready to expose them. "Let her go first," I said. Victor nodded, and Derek untied Evelyn. She stumbled to me, and I caught her, feeling her tremble. Lily led her to the exit. But Victor wasn't done. "The phone," he demanded. I tossed it to Marcus. "You do it. Pick a side." His hands shook. For a second, I saw the kid I grew up with. But he deleted the email, shaking his head. "I can't, James." I stepped toward him, but didn't strike. Instead, I said, "You made your choice. Live with it." I'd secretly sent the files from another device in my pocket. The journalist got them within a minute. Police stormed in 10 minutes later, tipped off. Victor and his men were arrested, their empire crumbling. Marcus tried to explain, but I turned away. Evelyn and Lily started anew. I left Chicago, but revenge brought no peace. Marcus lost everything, but the cost of my truth, my faith in friendship, was a debt I'd never repay.